Welcome to the Monday, December 1st, 2025 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. We have a quorum. Sharon will not be joining us this evening, but we're going to go ahead. You've all received, I assume, Jim's meeting minutes. Are there any comments or questions?
Move we accept.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried. We have in draft form the November 17 minutes. Are there any corrections or additions anyone would like to make?
Move we accept.
A motion, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried. Gretchen, do you want to speak about the 2026 calendar?
Pretty much the same as always. There's a couple of Tuesday meetings. Basically, if anybody has any conflicts.
Jim?
I don't have any conflicts, but I had asked about maybe moving the April 6th meeting to March 30th. That would not put us on, we had a meeting, 1 week after the other one, but it's spring break for my kids. And I don't know if you guys as well, but I'll show up if it's that week, no problem, but if anyone's okay moving it.
What's that week? Spring break would be difficult, for the record.
Well, I see multiple phones checking that, so we'll give it a minute.
And Joan did block that spot off, so it's okay.
Oh, she did block Thursday, okay. I haven't followed up. Good to know since that happened.
So you'd be going to
1 week before March
March
30th.
30th.
But we have an extra week in there, so it doesn't really mess
Then you'd
anything
have
up.
a longer,
Right, we'd have 3 weeks between the next one, but there would still be
It's just reversed.
2 weeks and then we have an extra week on the.
We'll get back to you.
Oh, it is easy.
all right, well, we'll circle back to that at the end of the meeting. And hope you had a chance to check that out. Would there be a conflict for anybody else if we did that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We do the 5th Monday of the month.
We've got still a couple minutes. Jim, do you want to look at the time extensions?
We have 2 timeline extension requests. One is for Rockledge and one is for T-Court. Rockledge is approved for construction of 36 new multifamily dwelling units or condos at the June 16, 2025 Planning Board meeting. The current site plan approval expires on December 16th. The special use permit is valid for the special use permit is currently valid, so we're okay there. That expires next June. That's what it was. Okay, yeah. Site plan expires on December 16th because that was 6 months. The special use permit is valid for a year and expires in June of next year. And the wetland permit is valid for 3 years, so that one is out. So we're only looking at an extension for the site plan approval. There's been no change in anything. They just need additional time, I guess, to pull the paperwork together and get it submitted for signature. So it is just a paperwork extension issue with no proposed changes to the plans as previously approved.
Questions?
Shall we extend to the special use permit timeline?
That is what I was doing, yeah. Bring it out to
Okay.
June
All right, got it,
2025.
yeah,
So the site plan and special use permit would then be lined up for June 16th, 2025. And if we get to that point and they need another extension, we'd have to do both.
You mean 26, right?
I'm sorry, 26, yes. Sorry, that's it.
Sounds good.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. KPH2 train.
Yep, so the other one, KPH2, this was the miniature train fence and stone wall and gates that were approved at the July 21st, 2025 meeting. The site plan approval expires on January 21st, 2026. The special use permit is valid for a year and expires on July 21st, 2026. And their wetland permit, again, is valid for 3 years, so no extensions needed there. Again, this is a paperwork issue, just looking to pull their paperwork together. So the proposal I have is to extend the site plan approval deadline to July 21st, 2026 to align with the special use permit. And again, no changes to the plans, just a paperwork issue.
Questions, comments? Motion?
Motion.
Motion from Tom, second.
Second.
Second second from Craig, all those in favor? Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Do we have a decision?
Looks like it's a little earlier this
It
year.
shows like March 30th through April
Third,
3rd.
which is strange.
Oh, I guess we're gonna keep it where it is.
But I mean, when you click on a link, it also doesn't show, so.
We'll verify and send it
Yeah.
out. That helps.
You don't need to make a decision at the second, right?
Can we approve it with both dates and then at the next meeting, just adjust it? So we can have joint votes.
Tell me that again.
Can we approve it with both of the dates? And then at the next meeting, we can decide which one it is, but at least Joan can post the calendar.
Yeah, okay.
We do meetings on both and then cancel one of them.
Yeah, the only reason we're saying that is he Googled it and found it, but when we go to the school calendar, it's not posted.
It doesn't show
So we
up.
just want to verify, because the
Just
school's
waiting.
supposed to post it and they didn't. So
All right,
I think it's a little
So
uncertain.
if you're the week of the 30th, we will keep it where it is. I will show up.
Let's,
We're not
so
gonna
we
do that, you
have,
guys are
Gretchen is proposing that we approve the calendar, including both of the tentative dates, and then we can select one at the next meeting, but she wants to get it posted.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, motion,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Just abstention, all right. We now can move into the public, there are no new applications this evening, so we'll move into public hearings. The first being that of Cleo Sullivan, 159 Cedar Heights Road, minor subdivision, 2 lots.
I'm Cleo Sullivan,
Hello.
and I own property at 159 Cedar Heights Road. We covered a bunch of points, and Sean and Delise came out, and we talked about everything that was on the first, all the questions that everybody had. So we have indigenous walls, so we're going to leave them, and we moved the driveway out just a little bit, and we marked it this morning with some photographs and some just flag. So that was like the first thing.
All right, Jim?
Based on the last discussion we had, we're just looking for updated information on the plans, which I don't believe have been submitted. I didn't see any. I don't know, Gretchen, if I missed them, but I haven't seen any. We're looking for dimensions, because I can't tell for sure that this is a wide enough lot. So we talked about getting all the dimensions put in here for the building envelope, making sure that it is a legal lot, and some other details we asked for at the last meeting.
Yeah, Josh marked this and he added it up for me.
Well, was it submitted?
I don't know, Josh,
We're waiting to get the driveway, and we're doing it all at one time, and the survey wasn't available.
oh yeah, the surveyor couldn't come.
Okay.
No, we need to have it submitted when we get all the information. So that's it. So we'll ask for the report from those that made the site visit.
Yeah, I mean, it was, the property's so beautiful. They were so informative and open to, you know, little tweaks based on some of the questions that were brought up at their last meeting. Some of which was the placement of the house, which even though it's not really what we're here to talk about, we did look at that. And also the topography where the, you know, kind of general space of the driveway would be. I was looking at some walls, and there were some very interesting formations. They were very open to, you know, preserving that, but also Sean brought up some great points just about the natural topography. And there's like a way that it would be least invasive to the property, to the trees, and to the walls, and they were wonderful about being amenable to that. And so it was great. It all makes sense, I think, in the way that it's evolved.
The only thing I'll add is, or one thing that was brought up is the, basically the rise that we'd see where the driveway was. And there's also a natural path that would kind of go around that. And what came up in the meeting is that everyone was pretty amenable to that idea of going around that instead of kind of straight up a wall. That would also create a buffer to the neighbor next door. We'd continue to keep that hill as to the neighbor next door. And then it was, you know, the idea was they could buff that driveway towards the house with some kind of plantings or something maybe in the future. But the idea was kind of like go around the edge of the hill and then back up into the edge of the property, which was the biggest concern I think that came up in this. And that's what I think we'll see on the next plans.
So you are updating the plans to include all of these decisions that were made in the field? And
Well, then the only thing I'll add is that when you get towards the back of the property, it's quite wide open. There's not a substantial amount of trees. There's also a reduced amount of trees that would have to be taken down from the driveway. So I know that was also potentially a concern, but when you get back there, it's quite open. And again, it's quite a beautiful lot.
Yeah, and, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, just that it marked on there, because I think Edna said house location at the highest point or something. And when we were there, I think it was just like a placeholder. It feels like a little bit before that highest point makes the most sense, which seemed like a natural conversation. Everyone seemed very open to that. Because there is some outcroppings right at that very top that feels like just next to it kind of engages it but doesn't disturb it too much.
Yeah, we're gonna keep all the
Yeah,
outcroppings and
exactly.
all the stone walls, because they're really pretty, and I don't wanna interfere with that. And any of the really big trees, we're not taking down, they're gorgeous, I don't wanna take those down yet.
It's a great solution to having a subdivision situation, because you're not gonna see the house from other houses. It's very cognizant of the neighbors where the driveway goes, so it feels well thought out.
Okay. Planning board members, questions, comments?
Yeah, even though this, compared to the pointer. This is the high point.
This
Is
is
this all higher?
No, it dips. This like dips pretty deep, and then this goes up and where the stone wall is. Not super deep, but like, it just
Right.
dips. It's
Well,
not like,
What's the comparison in elevation between like the highest point here and the highest point here? The reason why I ask is it's undesirable to site a house like right at the
Right,
top.
you see where like this is
no, we're
7.08?
it's sort of like
Yeah,
back
right there.
Yeah,
Back
it's almost
here.
like right in there is
It's
where.
like, it's gonna be away from the rock wall.
Right, because what we want to avoid is that kind of, that blister appearance where it's like, you
Yeah,
have a natural rise and a house plop at the top of it.
Yeah.
It's not really ideal, but having it down slope somewhat where
Yeah.
there's
that's
some
what it's gonna be.
backdrop and
Yeah.
some vegetation, okay.
Yeah.
We did ask about all the trails too that were there, and they aren't part of the, Lansing Field Trail, is that right? Yeah. I think there were lots of trails that we named, so there's more trails. But they're not anything. Were there other things you guys wanted to ask?
No, just the comments from last time, they should just make sure that they're addressed for the next time.
Oh, yeah, we talked to, the neighbors, we sent out all the letters and everything, and nobody said anything, so. Oh, and we did talk about the corner of the property where, there's surveyor came and was undecided why it wasn't, I don't know what, that, like, it was discrepancy, but I did speak to, Janelle, and she's like, fine, just let me know what happens. She was
We
totally fine
did
with it.
hear, John, that we received the email from Kim, who was looking into this question. And based on the response from Kim, there's nothing preventing us from continuing to review this application.
That's correct.
Yeah, she was very easygoing and.
No, I understand, that's how your neighbor felt, but we were asking legally, was there going to hold us up? And the answer is no, it's not going to hold us
Okay.
up.
I believe you also got approval from Bob White, I think he signed off.
Did
The
Bob-
highway department signed off as well, for the driveway location, I believe.
Yes, yeah, that wasn't a question. On the other side it was, like, somebody suggested the other side, and I thought it was a really good spot for the driveway, but they said because there was like a slight rise and then it dips, that it was dangerous, and everybody flies down that part of the road. So, it could work on the other side, but I don't know.
Well, if Bob signed off, that's all we need to do.
Yeah, okay, that's good, we'll do that.
So the issues there are just his sign off and then breaking through the rock wall and the slopes there, and those are the three issues with the driveway, so.
Well, the new driveway doesn't break the wall. It goes around it.
It's gonna be over here?
Yeah, it's got
Right,
a
yeah.
curve around it, 'cause
Oh, all right.
where the rock wall kind of is,
Right here.
that's very high, that's a
That
high
was, that
point.
was the concern. is
So
the
we'll
slope.
stay a little lower and just curve and then tuck back into the rock wall along the
Yeah,
side.
so the new driveway sort of goes like.
Exactly,
It's still gonna start at the same point exactly.
right, exactly.
So it's
So
sitting
that-
around that high point.
So it won't even touch the wall.
So that will need to be shown, but then you're gonna have to provide an access agreement, because it's on the neighbor's property, it's on the.
But they're gonna adjust the line
The
because.
line.
Oh, you're just the parcel,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
That would be I would be the
That-
next.
Is it lines
well, no, I
almost
understand.
straight back to,
Right.
for lack of a better
Okay.
location.
Anything else? Is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? All right, so we will continue the public hearing and wait to have you submit all of the changes in the application.
Okay.
Month,
Okay,
does that work? All right. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing until
January sixth, which
Jan-
is Tuesday.
January 6th, which is a Tuesday? All right.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
The next public hearing is out of Philip Carroll, 132 River Road, site plan review and wetlands permit. Good evening.
Evening, I'm Sean Mills.
Would you like to refresh our memory in that of the public?
Sure.
Would you like to-
So it's a 1950s ranch. We are changing the pitch of the roof. It will be a 5-degree flat roof, which will pitch to the back of the home. We are squaring up the 2 voids in the structure. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Well, new
Jim?
windows and new material on the front of the, on the exterior of the home.
Is there only 2 items that I had? One was the DEC determination, jurisdictional determination, which I'm guessing we're still waiting for.
We are, so that would have to be postponed till February
Second.
2nd.
Unless you hear earlier. So, yes, we'll look at that. And then the only other real question I had is just a question about any dirt that was going to be removed. I don't remember what we discussed.
Right,
last time.
and what I had mentioned to you is, because so currently there is a slab in place, right, so that we're gonna square up to. So we would be excavating just enough to install the frost wall, which is 1 foot by 4 foot by 16 feet. So whatever dirt is on the property is just gonna go into the front yard. There is currently kind of a dip in the front yard from, there was a very old birch tree in the front that we had to remove because one of the legs was rotten and we were afraid it was gonna come down onto the house. So once we had the stump round and whatnot, there's a bit of so it'll just be spread out in the front lawn. But it's gonna be very minimal regardless.
Can we add that as a note to the plans, just where it's gonna go? So we've had issues when people spread dirt of complaints coming in. It sounds like it's a minimal amount, I get that, but typically want to just know where
I
it
mean,
is.
it's,
Either a
I
note on
mean,
the plans or
if you look at one,
something in writing.
if you look at 1 yard of dirt, right, I mean,
That's all you're planning on us doing?
I mean, think about it, it's
One by four.
it's 1 by 4 by 16. I mean, I think maybe we'll make a yard or a yard and a half of dirt. I mean, it seems de minimis to me.
Maybe just something in writing, just a little paragraph you can submit, just to say anticipated it's about a yard, and it's gonna go where the tree was. Probably be fine.
Okay.
I think it's pretty much.
Planning board members? Anyone? Is there a site visit?
We had a site visit, and Jim, I gave you a couple photos.
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at the disappearances. Let's see.
show the other photo at the same time, just to make them both a little small? So this is the view of the house from pretty much the front of the property, and that's a view of the front of the property standing on the porch of the house. So you can see that there is a fence along the road. And, so
That's not the road, that's the house next door. This
This
fence
is the road.
is
This is the road here.
correct.
that's the road. And you're looking toward a fence.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was standing right on your front porch and pointing toward the road.
Mhm. I thought you were saying that that fence was at the road. That's the dividing line between the neighbor and the house.
Okay, but in any case, it obscures your house from the road.
Correct.
That's the point I'm trying to
I'm
make.
sorry, okay?
So if you then look at the elevation for what's proposed next to what's there, maybe we could look at the front elevation. So you can see that, while the ridge of the roof is not raised, the front and back facades are raised. So what we have is to my mind, very clean, contemporary looking structure instead of what is there. Can we take a look at what's inside of the floor plan? Is there any change? Because we didn't have an existing compared to a proposed, so is there any change in the
Yes.
layout of bedrooms and so forth?
There is.
So what we have are 3 bedrooms and then an office, which could be a bedroom, I suppose. And I asked when we were there what the septic field accommodates, and the answer was what?
So I tried to, with the holiday and whatnot, I tried to reach out to find out exactly the answer to your question. And I was not able to get that specifically. I can tell you that there is a 1,250 gallon holding tank, which goes out to a leach field.
Right.
Right. And I know that that was redone when the last renovation was done about 20 years ago.
Okay, the reason this comes up is there are 3 bedrooms plus an office, and the office could be used as a bedroom. And so the question was, if it were in the future used as a bedroom, could the septic field accommodate that?
I mean, based on the calculations that I'm aware of, it could, but I don't have that in writing. But we were mindful when we did the renovate, when we created the floor plan, we were mindful to keep it as a 3-bedroom so that we wouldn't, quite honestly, have to deal with this.
Okay, so we have the issue of,
We have
There's
the issue of the
another
number
room
of
that
bedrooms on the
could be a
health
bedroom.
department. And Craig, you went as well?
I did, yeah. And Sean, you had said in the first meeting that the house was not visible from the scenic road, and it actually is. And the way that this is normally assessed is it's standing at directly in front of the address and looking squarely into the property. Can you see the house?
Okay,
Yes,
you
you
can
can.
see the garage.
But I don't feel, first of all, you are changing the impact of that house by, even though you're not raising the overall height of the roof, you are raising that roof line on the front elevation and introducing a large, broad area above the windows. So it is going to look different from anything else around it. I would say that some of the mitigating effects are the use of natural stone in the design, and the vertical siding, which mimics a board and batten.
Correct.
And what is the siding material that you're going to use?
Right now, it's quoted for rough cut pine.
Okay. So natural materials. I do wish the windows had a little bit more character, because they seem to be just punched apertures, and that's.
But it's taken from, like a design master like Frank Lloyd Wright. There's another home, which is very similar in structure, down where the big pond is. I mean, that's also takes its cues from the same mid-century modern architecture.
Okay. But not really what the scenic road of River Road is noted for. And I don't think there are any Frank Lloyd Wright houses in the town.
It's also not known for, like, a crappy 50s ranch, so. I mean,
You said, right now, the siding is going to be pine. Is that your final decision?
that's what we have in, yes. I mean, that is the material that's being called for in the plan.
Okay. Anything else, Greg?
That's all. I think to favor the mitigating effects, there is a lot of surrounding vegetation. Maintaining that fence that Edna had mentioned, I think is key to keeping the property discreet and providing some privacy also.
And the renovation really adds significantly to the living space, and that plus the deck at the back, I think, makes the house a much more enjoyable house to live in.
Can I ask what planning board members are feeling about the potential of the office being used as a bedroom?
There's a door on it?
Yeah,
There's a double door on it. There's no closet in it. I mean, it's off the main living space to be used for a home office for live work.
The full bathrooms are all in bedrooms, and that's a half bath.
Correct. Yeah, each bedroom has an ensuite with a half bath. So if it was, if somebody wanted to use that as a bedroom, it would be very kind of impractical, because you'd have to go into another bedroom to shower. So there's no public full bath in the home.
What are the doors made of? The
That-
double doors?
They are, in the current plan, it's a shaker door with a frosted glass panel at the top and a solid bottom.
well, you indicated we're still waiting for the DEC JD, correct? And Gretchen, you were working out when the earliest that could be?
February 2nd, if he doesn't hear from them, but there is always the chance that they could come back
So
beforehand. So it's really, I guess, up to you guys and the applicant. If you wanna do a month, and if nothing comes, we could just
Or we could go 2
We
months?
could just bump it to the next one,
Or we could go 2 months.
or we could go 2 months, he
January.
may get an answer in between, and then,
Well, I guess I'm suggesting go to January, and in the interim, that would give you plenty of time to get in touch with the health department and get the facts as to how that's sized, and then we can use that information to continue the conversation about a potential bedroom. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Good.
so you wanna do a month then?
2 months, oh yeah, 1 month to January, yep.
And then if nothing comes up, you can say, hey,
Right, okay. Anyone here from the public? All right, So could I have a motion to continue the public hearing to January
6th.
6th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is Justin McLeod, 531 Old Whitfield Road, site plan review for renovation and addition. Okay.
Hello.
All right.
My name is Carl Hanson. I'm an architect and project manager with the Art of Building, representing our clients, the homeowners. We have an existing property at 531 Old Wurtemberg, and it's at the corner of Old Wurtemberg and Schultz Hill Road. I think we know it's a historic property. We've got the existing house with a roughly 90s addition to it. We are proposing to remove the previous addition, rebuild in the same footprint, plus an additional area of a total footprint of 706 square feet. A couple of the other modifications we'll be making are an extension to the existing driveway that comes around the back to come up to the back of the main house to provide parking for the owners. And that would also result in removing the existing front parking area and driveway and continuing the existing stone wall across that current opening. That area will be planted and seeded with grass to blend in with the rest. Next, go through a couple of slides, so just do an overview real quick. All the elements proposed on the site are extension of stone wall, existing native stone. We'd be matching that using more native stone. Much of the, this is the second photo on the right there, number 2, looking at roughly where the driveway extension is going. If you look at number 4 here in the bottom left photo, that's looking out into the field where the proposed pickleball court will be located down the southeast corner of the plant. Keep going. Just showing the comparison between the existing site plan and the proposed. Basically, you can see in the existing number 1 and 2 are the existing house and 90s addition together, the original home and the 90s addition. And when you look at the proposed new, the existing original main block house is number 1, and number 2 includes the full expansion of the new addition. Again, some additional footpaths would be all bluestone, blackstone material. The proposed driveway extension would match the existing, which is a torn chip. And all outdoor lighting would be dark sky compliant. And plenty of vegetation proposed as well. The proposed pickleball court out in the field, the grade drops away quite a bit. And I think from the site visit we had, was able to see how much the grade drops away, so you can really tell how it kind of falls away from the field of vision when you're standing back and looking. So all that you would see along the western side of it before it drops away is a little bit of stone retaining wall and then a split rail fence with a cable net across it just for fall protection in front of it. That would have a native stone wall and steps leading into the court, and then the east side of it just drains freely back into the field where it's at, basically at grade. So a few of the details requested by the planning board, showing the elevation change and how this section is cut through the middle here. Split rail fence just to the outside of the retaining wall, and then court below, another split rail at grade along the eastern edge there too, and that's where it comes away. Here in these photos, the top section, the top row, you can see all of the current, or the house as it stood around 1984, and then below, as it sits today. I apologize for the photos being turned there on the right too. And then we'll keep going. So this is the current existing site floor plans, lower level basement on the left, first floor in the middle, and second floor on the right. That red line denotes basically the lower section, which is the original home, and then the circa 90s addition on the top. Same thing with the elevations, red line denoting the difference between the original house block and then that beyond, which is being removed from the circa 90s addition. And as you can see, when we get into our, the next slide, so thanks. Same thing to the top here is the new addition, occupying the same footprint as the current 90s, plus the expansion of 796 square feet footprint for the gym on the basement level, and then the family room and screen porch on the first floor. And then same with the elevations again, seeing the existing block with the new additions relative to it, as discussed previously. If we keep going, the new addition per previous submissions and comments as really stepping down in scale as the additions come down, so revealing more of the original historic home. Just a note, per the planning board's comments previously, we've updated all the plans to have correct notes. Building heights are shown as well as defined, and the clarification on number of bedrooms. Those were just notes that hadn't gotten globally updated, but the house will remain a 4-bedroom home, just as it is now. No expansion of that, and it's adding 1 bathroom, 1 full bathroom. Keep going. Just more of the elevation, seeing that the addition to the right stepping down in scale. And then materials, we'll have cedar shingle roof, standing seam copper over the lower shed roof over the covered porch, and native stone veneers again, copper gutters, copper lights, exterior lights, and painted siding and trim. Just a detail through the window, proposing to restore the 12/12 lights. These would be a simulated divided light for energy code, updating this. And then this is the current proposed front elevation. The one comment we weren't able to get to, given the timing of our feedback from HIPAC, is to provide additional details regarding this front entry, so that's something we'll have to review and just provide some extra.
Right, so as noted, I think most of the notes and the, differences in, bedroom count has all been taken care of, so I think we're good there. Clarifying details have all been provided. As you know, HAPAC has submitted, of course, Marty's out in the audience. I hear from him. A fence is being proposed, so you're seeing a fence permit, so we'll just add that in as part of the discussion and the referral. And really the only thing I think remaining, in terms of the planning side of things that I'm looking at is just the board's determination on whether or not any of the new spaces could be used as a bedroom. I know there's a proposal to keep the number the same, but I had brought up previously the potential for the family room, possibly the rec room, there is a gym, so we talked about those previously, and just making a determination on the planning board end on those. Otherwise, I think everything else I had talked about last time has been addressed.
Yeah, if I may, regarding the bedrooms, we'd like you to consider, the overall property and the developments that the owner has taken across the street as well, that they've got plenty of bedrooms between the two properties. They're really not looking to make use of these as bedrooms. They've got enough to support guests and family as needed with everything that's been provided so far and the development across the street. These really are just amenity spaces for them. They really are not intended as bedrooms in no way, shape, or form.
But.
And the septic had already previously been updated per the plan to maintain the bedroom count.
But the property across the street is its own parcel, correct?
It is, yes.
So that could be sold. It could be sold, right?
But even so, with this property, they have additional bedrooms in the barns as well.
I understand, but I don't think the point that they'll always be the same.
Sure.
is one that I can buy into.
And, you know, the reason that this came about was written into the code a couple of years ago for the planning board to specifically take a look at this. It's not necessarily what's being proposed by an applicant in front of the board today, but what could happen in the future if the house is sold, if someone new moves in and sees that as potentially a bedroom, or a realtor is on, says it's a bedroom, whatever the case might be. That's why it went in there. If the board sees it as potentially a bedroom, then they need to consider whether or not it could be or would be used as that, but regardless of what, you know, the purposes of what's being proposed here. So
Certainly.
that's where that comes from, the background.
Yeah, please, I mean, given the amount of development and time and energy and money they put into this property, they don't really have any intention of selling it anytime soon. so.
Isn't there a current gym in one of the barns?
There is actually, yeah, and if you do look at, well, even if you look back at the existing floor plan as it is today, and it's approved as a floor, there is an existing gym. There is an existing, there's a rec room as well. You know, even this laundry, technically, you could consider a bedroom in the existing space. So it's not that the current house doesn't already also have plenty of extra amenity
We
spaces.
know
that you
everything it
could
has.
still-
Okay, someone has made a site visit. Where would we like to start? I think we'll just report on the site visit, and then Marty is here representing APAC with a number of comments, and Edna has specifically asked if we can go through some of Marty's comments in detail for a better understanding on the part of everybody. I'll start. I was on the site visit and saw exactly what you're proposing here. There are parts of it that certainly are a vast improvement from what we've seen before, and I commend you on that. There's a lot going on in the property. It's a very, very busy property, and one of the things that I recall the first time we looked at this was with the involvement of Charles Birnbaum in terms of the protection of that kind of roadway in the back behind the property adjacent to the neighbor. And the trees look lovely. He planted a number of trees along there, and that's great. I still have a problem with that driveway coming all the way up to the back of the house. I think it's a beautiful lawn area back there, and you'll recall this property is on the corner, so you see it from two sides. And when you bring the driveway, in my opinion, all the way around, bring the cars up to the back of the house, there's no garage there. It's going to turn into what I consider to be a very busy parking area. And there is an area behind the accessory dwelling unit where there is parking already. And just setting it back that little bit, in my mind, would relieve some of the busyness of that corner, which is very visible from certainly the road out there. And then, did we make a decision in the field about whether or not the field where the pickleball court had been covered by the original phase 1A and B or not? You were going to check on that.
The pickleball court itself is really just on the edge of where an APE was included before, out to the septic. The previous APE covers a portion of it, not all of it. But given the comments from Beth Selig, our archaeologist, she didn't feel any further investigation was necessary. And then it was also noted that, of course, if we were to find anything in investigation and excavation, we would immediately stop and report.
I'll turn it over to the others who were in the field with me.
Well, I agree with the driveway. You know, a lot going on there. There should be a yard. And my question is, you know, the property across the street with the water, and it had been mentioned that they had had problems with this basement also with water, and getting the water away. Is there a possibility this is going to end up being a crawl space?
We don't think that's likely here. Part of that reason is because the existing foundation actually has a big foundation bedrock kind of coming into the basement. Given the older construction, it's hard to kind of seal it properly. And as well as the natural grade does start to fall away down to the southeast. We think we've got more excavation we can do there without a problem, but we think it's unlikely, and especially we don't have an issue. Most of the issue with the other side of the property is giving the waterway that comes through that space, and some of the retention that happens over there as well. So we don't foresee this being an issue. We've also, through the previous projects, also been in a bunch of this area and did discover the same thing.
I think it's something to be mindful of, and I'm wondering, do you have a backup plan if you encounter the same problem on this side of the road that you did on the other side?
Not something laid out already. I imagine the same evaluation would potentially take place at that point. But again, we're pretty confident we won't see the same thing in this property.
Anything else,
No,
Tom? Right?
I was a little confused because in the site visit, Darren said that this was going to be really no impact, everything was going to be just on the surface, but you're saying chip and seal, and to me that it's asphalt with a polymer that has chips embedded in it. Is that what this is going to be?
Yeah, essentially tar and chip, but that only requires like a very kind of small subbase, so it's very minimal like scraping of topsoil that's all already been disturbed through the previous project. So none of that existing topsoil there is.
It's the root system of those large trees that this is skirting, and that's, it gets within possibly the drip edge of the tree, but we tend to look more toward the critical root zone, which is a function of the diameter of the tree and the distance from. So, how disruptive is that going to be if there's, if it's just things that are being put on the surface, it's maybe not going to be so bad, but then there's the risk that there's going to be disruption from the roots as the trees propagate.
Well, part of the way this was laid out with all sensitivity to the existing trees there and trying to skirt through them very cleanly without disrupting any of them, so that is our main prerogative for this. And additionally, the owner, and through obviously I think previous submissions much longer ago and the previous versions of the additions, had wanted a garage, so they're pretty adamant about getting this extension so that they can park closer to the home and not have as far of an unsheltered distance to get in the home in inclement weather. They're fairly adamant about having this extension.
I'd like them to have a conversation about that again, given the observations that we made in the field. Because I think it also comes close to the trees. If that were brought back, there would be less danger to the trees.
Right, well, and there's also you again didn't mention the fact that this is a National Register property. And it's notable for being a simple, humble, early 19th century intact farmstead. And every step that is being made by this owner is eroding that. And what you're proposing gives it much more the feel of something that's like an activity complex. There's plenty of parking. There are all these buildings that are now occupied, and it's a pool house, and it's a playroom. There's all kinds of stuff going on there that really disrupts the integrity of that farmstead. And I'll withhold some of the things that I have to say about the house itself. But I think it's really important to pay attention to what this property is and why it's important.
Yeah, well, one thing to note about that, other than the proposed addition to the main house right now, the other buildings on the site were all existing barns that were restored. So it's not like we've added structure beyond that. Now, the proposed pickleball court, understandably, is an addition, but it's also tucked way down on the other end of the property and quite out of sight, given the grade change. I think the owners, given the previous submissions too, have taken a lot of pains to revise their approach to the addition by reducing the total scale and scope of it from previous submissions, and are trying to be as attentive as possible to the original home and its integrity. That being said, we're trying to be as sensitive as we can to everything. And with regards to the driveway extension, I would pose that the existing parking space off of Wurtemberg is much more visible than what we're proposing here with the driveway extension from Sol's Hill. When you come down Wurtemberg, it's right there. There's barely any elevation change. It's very visible from the street with no vegetation in front of it. Where we're proposing this extension now, from Schultz Hill, that grade drops quite a bit from Schultz Hill, and there's been considerable planting along that road. So you really have very limited vision to, or visibility to the proposed driveway extension.
Well, I actually, when I left that day, did drive by on Schultz Hill, and I disagree with your observation. All right, I'm going to turn it over now to the discussion from KPAC. And Edna, I know you had some specific things, so Marty, we're ready for your comments, and Edna has some comments as well.
I don't have comments. I want to make sure that I completely understand what APAC is getting at.
Okay.
And so I was hoping we could put up drawings at the same time as we're talking about various aspects.
Yeah, I'm Marty Rosenblum. I am formally a licensed architect and a graduate of the Columbia Historic Preservation Program, and basically spent a large part of my career presenting to groups such as you.
Marty, not to interrupt you, can you go to the mic,
Can you
please?
come to the microphone? Yeah.
So this is what I've done my whole life, and this is why I came to Rhinebeck, was to be surrounded by the type of architecture that makes this community special. I don't know if the easiest way is to read this out or just go through some high points. Melody,
I
what
think
do you
we've all had a
suggest?
chance to look at it, so I don't think you need to read it, but you
Okay.
can go through the high points, and
Yeah,
if
I-
you don't cover what
Right.
Edna's particularly interested in. But I think Edna's hoping that we can pull up.
Put my questions in yellow, the things that I had hoped we could expand on.
Okay,
The
excellent.
last page has the proposed entry.
Okay, so, well, let's not even start with the entry, let's start with the general elevations. I tried to reach, first of all, the high points of this, but I would like to bring up one or two other concerns that I have, though lesser, while things are under reconsideration. First of all, this is a very important building and complex. It is also a linchpin of an unbelievably rich agricultural district. I believe there are more Dutch barns on that road than there are in the entire township, or close to it. The profusion of, or the number of 18th and 19th century structures are numerous, and they are vernacular structures. And this is very important to realize. A lot of work was done on the design, and I think it was mentioned earlier, the step down is very, very helpful in reducing the impact on the house mass. I was very happy to see that. I did question, in terms of hierarchy, why all the windows are the same when the importance of the spaces is not the same. Generally speaking, in vernacular architecture, as the scale of the building goes down, and these are principal rooms, these become smaller, and these become smaller. So normally this would have been, for instance, a kitchen, not a gym, and would not have all these openings. So I think in this case, you've worked a little bit against yourselves. You've caught the essence here, and I really appreciated the photo with the 12/12 window, but I think that you could improve on the scale of the step down if the windows decreased accordingly as you went back. I also, one other question that I didn't mention because it's really a matter of mechanics, but this configuration up here is very, very unusual, which is you have a gable end and then you have a gable end dropping into it, which normally does not occur in a historic building. They did not have the ability to waterproof or flash as we do. And you've created a very unlikely valley in there. And so I would ask that when you submit plans further on, that we be provided with a roof plan so that we can understand how these slopes are going to work. Because this slope coming back down here is illogical. Perhaps you're going to deal with a cricket in there or something, but I would like to know what is going on there. The main block of the house is what I'd like to concentrate on, and for several reasons. A, that is what is most historic, and also part of the role of a group such as HAPAC is, as we've had the benefit of visiting multiple sites in the community, we begin to see a theme going on. And the first time we reviewed the house, I wasn't as aware of certain of the things. For instance, this would have been a well here outside the kitchen. This would have been an open porch. We can't make you put back what isn't there. But we do feel very strongly about what is there. And with that, I'm going to go to the front of the house. You are proposing to remove a porch, which probably was not original. And so you are welcome to do that if it is not historic, meaning has how much age you determine it has. You can look at fasteners, nails, the footing, etc. But you are making a door that was very sheltered and a very modest entry into a major gesture. Were this downtown Kingston or something where federal style was more prevalent, it might have happened. This was a very modest farmhouse. This was nothing like the gentleman's farm it has been made into. The sheer proximity of all of the outbuildings to the house show this was a working farm complex. No frills, no fancy. The particular door that you have here is something that is highly characteristic in this area. I referred people last time to the Palatine Farmstead. They're all up and down Route 9. They are very particular to this area, and when I was less than a mile away at 18 Frost Road, I was dumbstruck. Their house, their Dutch barn, had the very entrance. Now it's been altered, they took out the sash windows, but their openings are all original. And it was a window, and a door. No pilasters, plain, simple, similar to Palatine Farmstead. When you are replacing something, in my professional opinion, of the date is really not relevant. It is of the date if appropriate for that structure. Certainly someone in a more urbanized area of greater wealth might have done something of this nature. I'm not saying it didn't exist, but it did not exist on this house. And it very much, it dominates the house. So whereas the entrance was modest, it's now paneled, it now has pilasters, it's an illusion that does not belong there for a modest farmhouse. And I'm really troubled by it. I hope that they will look at some of the other examples. I have difficulty when people buy a modest house that is registered, that they feel that they have to improve upon it. Because it was a small house. It was never meant to be grand. It was not meant to put on airs. And I would say that if anything is done here, first of all, as I think you mentioned earlier, I'd like scaled details and drawings of everything, including the existing openings, because I don't want to see openings changed. I don't want to see their proportions altered. If one wishes to look at this area of the house further, you can date changes by nails that have been used. You can date changes on the inside by plaster lath that has been changed. There are many ways to date it, and if that information is available, we are happy to consider it. It's my belief that the openings that we have there are original, and if there is no information to the contrary, I think that it would be a tremendous loss to, I mean, this is becoming like an estate, a mini estate. And the last thing we have is the front of the house, really. And I would hope that everyone would urge that we do everything to preserve its modesty. They're not even driving up to the front of the house anymore. They're driving around to the back. It's, in my estimation, a loss. It's a gain and it's a loss. They're going to spend a lot of good quality millwork is expensive. They need not do it, okay? A lumberyard pilaster, we don't need on the front of that house. It would be, it's misleading. So I hope that when people suggest of the period, that they add of the period where. We didn't even have a bridge across. I mean, this was the middle of nowhere when that house was built. And they were all built probably by the same people. So look around. We would be happy to show you some of these things, although I'm sure you're capable of doing it on your own. And modest is the key word on the front of this house. The less change, the better. Edna, did I address what you were concerned about?
Can I look at my yellow line notes?
Yes, please.
I really do think that you have covered it. Did you discuss this enough, do you think, this revising the fenestration of the?
Yeah, that was what I had said. If we can go back to the proposed elevation of the side of the house. Thank you. So that was when I was discussing, Edna, that generally these windows would decrease in scale as to the proportion and the importance of the room. Windows were very expensive, and they weren't looking, other than for ventilation, farmers weren't looking for view. There was nothing pretty, so to speak, in their life. You boasted in the front, and you got more and more modest as you went back. And there was a hierarchy in these houses. It was never standard. Even the type of window frequently would be more modern or updated on the front of the later or the better, and they would become less and less. Glass was expensive. It was all expensive. And also there was a lot of heat loss from it. So all that I'm saying is, this is great, we have a photo for it, as long as the size of the openings aren't changed. But this is all new, and as this is subservient to this, I would like the scale to be a little less on these. And particularly back here, these windows are huge. That's like for a family room or an entertaining room or whatever. And in reality, it would have been a lesser space and would have had smaller windows. So that is what I mean by the hierarchy of the fenestration.
Right, then it also differentiates the addition from the original.
That's right, because they would not have been copying the windows. Again, this was a farmer. He would not copy the windows from the front when he did something later. If this were done later and there was a local mill, he would have bought what farmers didn't match. It was what was easiest and most available, using local materials and local sources.
Can I jump in?
Please.
I agree with everything that you said about the windows and the entryway, and it's interesting, I hadn't considered that about the hierarchy of windows, but you're absolutely right. The L additions are quite common in houses like this. It's one of the ways that they expanded, and they did tend to follow that, so that would be an expected evolution, but what we're seeing here is this is just a modern addition. So I tread a little carefully with that from a design standpoint, just because you don't want to falsify history and make it look like something from the late 19th century when it's really something from the early 21st century. This window doesn't exist, and I don't see any evidence that it ever did. And this one exists, but it is much smaller. And I think the reason why, and I believe why you had to offset it and not stack it directly below the window above, is you have an enormous chimney breast here that gets wider on the first floor, occupies a lot of that space. So you can't really come this way with that window. And I think the original builders experienced that same challenge, and they addressed it by putting in a smaller window. So I think it's a mistake to try to match what's above there. It doesn't make the house more original. And also, I would be concerned that you'd be running into a structural corner brace, because this is probably a timber frame structure that would have a diagonal brace in there that you would encroach on. And I'm sure there are ways that you can deal with it, but I would beg you to not do that and trust in the integrity of the original timber frame structure and its ability to support the load.
Nice catch.
And I agree with Marty that one of the reasons why this is a very simple entryway is because it was a covered entryway. And I would concede that what's there now, I mean, there are some of the photographs that you provided that show it in the mid-1980s without any paint on it. I think it might be the ones from 1986. So this was, what we're looking at is a reconstruction. But I wouldn't, unless you had some really robust documentation of what the federal style details might have been like, I would keep it very simple and not be overwrought with it. Also, the choice of the shutters. Currently, there are no shutters on this elevation, I think. Is that correct?
Today, I don't believe so. We can go back to the photos.
But these earlier photos, if you look at them carefully, there seems to be a combination of solid shutters and louvered shutters. And I think that there's some utility in that. Maybe they wanted to have ventilation from the upper floor and privacy down below. Something to close in the wintertime to keep the space warm on the first floor, but on the second floor, there was a desire to have not have the western sun pounding down in the summertime, where you could close those, still get ventilation, but block the heat from the sun. So there, I mean, these are all things that are welcoming for discovery, but if you change them at this point, they're gone. And not for nothing, this is a house that scholars are going to look into the National Register and see if they can find a house like this, because they're studying buildings of that type, or they're trying to discover something about the folkways of this area, something about the Palatines. And this is a very important record for that. And I would just be very careful about making unfair changes.
Yeah, so to that point, I mean, what I addressed earlier is that given the timing of our receipt of the
Sure.
comments from HAPAC, we just haven't had a chance to
Wonderful.
respond correctly.
And-
So we were already planning on discussing this with our historical consultant, reached out to him before the holidays, but obviously given the holiday, haven't received a response yet. So it is our intention to address all of these issues.
Oh, good, and there's always the tape, so you can refresh your consultants. Other planning board members? I would just add a couple of things. We certainly are spending a lot more time on the details of this application than we normally do. And I appreciate Marty being here and giving us the opportunity to do it. One of the reasons that I want us to be very precise is that we missed some things. We, the planning board, missed things the first time around when all of the other work was going on. You brought up that the buildings were there, and indeed they were there. But there have many more things have been added than just those buildings that were there. And we were not as precise as we should have been in how we thought those buildings were going to be treated. So the precision and the detail of which we're looking at this now is a result of us not perhaps doing the best job we could have done the last time. And I want to reiterate that, in my opinion, as Marty alluded to, the Wurtemberg Road area of town is, in my opinion, one of the most historic areas in the town of Rhinebeck, with many of the original buildings there. In and of itself, Wurtemberg Road should be listed on the National Register as a road.
Absolutely.
Because the roadscape there is as important in telling the story of the early settlement of the town as any other road in town. So that, combined with all of the other things, is why we're putting our best efforts into understanding this application. So if there's nothing else from the planning board, I would ask if anyone from the public wishes to comment. If not, we'll be continuing the public hearing. You have a lot of things to think about and a lot of things to talk about. Anything else from the planning board? Marty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are happy to have you continue to reach out and speak to HAPAC. That's why they're here. If you'd like to schedule another site visit or other things, please let us know, and we'll take it from there. Is 1 month turnaround enough time for you?
Yes.
All right, so may I have a motion to continue the public hearing to January 6th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. The next public hearing for this evening is Daniela Gallo, Roslyn, 135 River Road, site plan review and renovation. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniela Gary McCausland, and I'm here on behalf of myself and my partner Sam. We are proposing to remodel our house, 134 River Road. Majority of the renovations will be interior. The one proposal that we make, the one thing we're proposing for the exterior is enclosing an existing porch. And then based on last time's comments, we provided renderings of the heat pump. Oh, this is the old. This is the old site plan, the one that doesn't have the heat pump rendering.
All right, we're just double checking on that. Are we still, did you have to get a JD?
Yes,
And that's still
so,
outstanding?
the 100 days, so we sent them the letter after the 90 days, and the 100 days should be this Wednesday or Thursday.
Good target.
I think it would have been sent to you November 7th.
Yeah, that's what Gretchen is.
Oh. Okay, sweet, so. Okay, it's kind of small, but the heat pump. Would be, here in the back, of the house. And we kind of propose it building it so it looks as pretty as possible with the same color as, the siding.
What are you enclosing it with?
I think it says on the notes, our architect suggested, let's see.
Is it a solid, I really can't read it, is it a
Oh.
solid fence? What is?
It would be, kind of a fence that has, like, space for ventilation.
Like a louver, it'd have slots in it.
Yes, yes.
Kind of right up the edge. Right here.
Right, that's where the piping would go and then right into the house. So it's as kind of obstructed as possible, or so you can't see it as much as possible.
Jim? Yeah.
That was really it, just getting updated plans, which I apologize I missed. And then the DEC jurisdictional determination.
Well, what do we want to do?
They don't need any fence or anything from the right? I'm just confirming, just so they don't like run into stuff with
For the enclosure, I mean, we probably should, but it's just merely adding the fence permit as a part of the approval and then just pulling the permit
Yeah,
outside.
I just want
The only alternative is landscaping.
no, I think it's, I would do the same thing, I just want to,
No, you're right, we would need a fence permit, they pull that downstairs, so we would just add that to the, we'd add it to part of the approval resolution.
Yeah, of course. I mean, is there any way to
Condition,
condition it?
can we do an approval conditioning it on the JD?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple days out, and you present the letter in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still relatively new, but we haven't had one come back in the last couple days. It's
And
minimal
The
disturbance.
site is, yeah, I mean, we're not, it's not a major expansion, it's,
Yeah.
where these have come in is when you're expanding or adding on,
Yeah,
this is taking existence.
yeah. You see an issue with this, John? No.
It's an existing footprint, I mean, it's,
Is there anybody else? Okay, is the public hearing still open? All right, so anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? If not, may I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion closed.
Second. A motion is second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Jim, would you like to offer up a conditional resolution?
I can do that. I'll just make a couple modifications. So, conditional draft approval resolution for the board's consideration today for site plan, for the application by Danielle Gallo McCausland for site plan and a fence permit under Township Chapter 125 to undertake renovations at 134 River Road within the RA10 zoning district. Reaffirming the action is type 2 for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Finding that based on review of the submitted information, the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. And with respect to the application for site plan approval, asking the board to find the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125 and approve the application materials inclusive of the site plan by VA Chicago Architects, updated date that I will add. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan, subject to the 3 conditions listed below. We will condition this on getting DEC jurisdictional determination clearance. And reminding everyone that in taking this action, the planning board authorizes the planning board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant, along with details on next steps to finalize the process. And then all plan sketches and the materials submitted to the town of Rhinebeck Building Department for any required permits must be the same as those submitted to the planning board tonight.
May I hear a motion?
Second.
A Motion is second, I'll call the board. Craig?
Aye.
Edna?
Aye.
Tom?
Um,
Sean? And Denise? I vote aye. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, for the JD, what do you need?
Well, you just provide a copy of the letter when you get it, hopefully with the right answer.
Okay. And if they don't send the letter kind of by the 100th day?
Just document all of that, talk to Gretchen about what she needs,
Okay,
and that's really all we.
awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Good luck. Okay, the last public hearing this evening is that of Rhinebeck Villas LLC, New York State Route 9G and Middle Road, site plan, special use permit, and wetlands permit. Evening.
Good evening, Sean Kemp on behalf of Rhinebeck Villas. I apologize I wasn't able to attend last month's meeting, but from what I understand, we left off where the board was going to begin the secret analysis, I believe. I recently received an email from Jim, I believe, it might have been Thanksgiving night, with a couple of requests for some additional information. So we plan on obviously supplying that information. It didn't seem like it was much heavy lifting. They seemed to be pretty straightforward questions that Jim had outstanding, and we're hopeful that we can turn that around relatively quickly. And we're also hopeful that it won't impede the progress with respect to the board's secret analysis. Other than that, I don't have any developments on the applicant's side.
Jim?
Yeah, so I went through, I think everyone got a copy, I hope, of the seeker analysis that I did, all 49 pages of it. So I did draft that for you based on all the information that's been provided, because this is a long form seeker, so we need to go through the long form seeker analysis, and you can discuss how you want to do that. I did provide Sean with questions last week, and I did identify these when I wrapped up writing this, and wanted to provide this to you in advance just so you have them, obviously, some questions are to get answered. The only two things I don't think I put in there were that the lighting on the plan still says the lighting design continues to evolve and will be updated. It looked like that had been finalized, but I just didn't know the status of the lighting plans. Not sure if they're finished or not, so just want to get clarification on that and make sure we're set on lighting plans. I did see, there were lights and then we had all the photometrics, I think, but there was a note somewhere on the plans, I think, that said it's still being updated, so I just want to see if that's final. And then, we talked before about fire inspection. I know the chief, Knapp has provided sign off on the project, but didn't get anything from the fire inspector. Usually with the bigger projects, we could request that. So I would request that you talk with the fire inspector for the town.
Yep.
And then beyond that, I think we are at the point of discussing secret. I know the board wants to go. That's,
Which order would you?
it's up to you.
We're going to discuss in a minute how we're going to approach seeker, and we may choose to take some of the easier ones this evening. Before that, I guess I would ask if there's anyone here from the public that would like to make comment before we get into the discussion of seeker.
Hi, Eleanor Leader. I was here last month, and I brought up the traffic situation, and you told me that I have to contact the state because it's a state road. I called them, I wrote to them twice, I haven't heard back, and I sort of don't understand why the town isn't trying to get a traffic study based upon the dangerous situation at that intersection of Middle Road and 9G. So, I mean, I will keep trying to get it, but I would think that it's in the town's best interest to make that a safe intersection, and I don't really understand why it's just on us in the community to try and get that done.
Traffic study, there is a traffic study that was done.
We tried looking in the file, I couldn't find
Sean,
it.
you want to address that?
There most certainly was a traffic study that was performed.
When was that?
I don't have the exact date, but
Well, here's-
It's
it
up on the
was,
screen. I believe this is the most recent one. It's February 24th. Right then, the revision of the original traffic study. So they have done traffic study and analysis for the applicant for the town,
Yeah, I know it's been ongoing.
but it's a state road, that's why we refer to DOT.
And you were able to locate this on, online?
This is my file, I'm pretty sure it'll be online, I can double check the file, but it should be in there.
I can't read it so quickly to see is there a conclusion there, or it's just saying that whether it exists?
And is this done by DOT or is this done by somebody they hire?
This was done by their consultant.
Oh.
That's the standard way that these are done.
Have you ever tried that intersection of Middle Road and 9G?
Yeah. If I might add, in this folder, there's, I think, a 24 and a 25 folder, and there's an application in one of those two folders, and it's like 185 pages long, and that has, if you scroll through it, it has a lot of that stuff that you're looking for. I know I found the archaeology there that was part of it. It was all merged into one document. So if you're going through and trying to find what you're looking for, look at this number of pages on the file that you click on, because it might just look like the application form that's been filled out by hand, but that's just the first like 6 pages, and a lot of other stuff gets appended to that.
I'll look again. They think it should be an unsignaled driveway. I completely disagree, and I hate to see the worst accident that happens at that intersection because of that hotel.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Weeder. Just a continuation on this, I don't understand how we just accept somebody that a developer hires that's obviously biased, and we don't do anything on the other side to see for ourselves whether we agree or disagree.
Well, we do, you know, our own engineers that report to the planning board, we refer these things to them for their review. But I think it's unfair to categorize an independent consultant as biased. These are folks that have professional licenses and other things that are dependent on their doing an honest job. Now, we may disagree with their findings, but to call them biased going in, I think is not nice or fair.
Last time, Mark Weeder, last meeting a month ago, I raised a question about the water in the wells and the capacity of the well that they're putting in and the impact on us as neighbors. My recollection of when those notices went out that their company was going to have somebody test our wells, first of all, I don't recall it being certified now, and I do remember at the last meeting they have not provided any return receipt documents, so I think they should have to do that. That's number one. And number two, my recollection of those documents and the reason why I did not have them inspect my well was that they were going to put machines into or equipment into my well numerous times, and they asked me to sign a waiver of any recourse against them for damage to my well. So I don't believe there's anyone sitting here today that would agree to that and let somebody do work on their property, a stranger that wants something for themselves, that wants you to sign something with no recourse to them if they should damage the equipment. So I asked the board to get that documentation that was sent to, supposedly sent to everybody certified, prove that number one, it was sent certified, which they have not proven at this point, and two, to see the documentation and to see if that exists. If I am correct, and there was this waiver of liability, I don't believe that that's a valid process, and that shouldn't have existed. Thank you.
You do want to say that traffic study is in the original submission on the 2025 so it is there. Online.
And with respect to the wells that were tested, I'm not sure what information Rob might have touched on at the last meeting regarding that. I'll look into it further, but I know in my review of the materials, everything that was presented was all in accordance with state law and the processes and procedures that are usually typically employed for this type of inspection. I don't have personal knowledge of any type of waiver that was handed out, but I do know that in instances like this, there are documents that need to be signed by the property owner. I don't know exactly what they were. I can try and look into that, I suppose. But this is the first I'm hearing of somebody objecting to the well on that basis, the well test on that basis. And I think that's all I have to say in respect to that.
Also, just to clarify, that not that the town's not deeply engaged with the traffic, but the light itself is what we can't, right? We don't have jurisdiction on, is that right? Like to add a light would be is not us, but the care for like making sure it's, the traffic study feels
Or turning lanes or
satisfactory.
anything else
Yeah.
related to the
And
road.
that's what we can't control, is a light.
Well, we can't control any of the changes to the road, those are all dependent on DOT,
Okay.
that's why we defer to DOT. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm a planner, I do a lot of transportation work, I've taken a look at it, but I don't have a PE behind my name. I believe that our engineer has taken a look at it, and I don't remember anything that really caught his eye. And obviously DOT's looked at it, but in the end, DOT has to sign off on this, regardless of what anyone says or doesn't happen, it's their call, 'cause it's a state road, so we really have no control unless we want to make a major issue of it, as the board of the town, going back,
Any accident reports at that intersection?
There's crash analysis that were done, I believe, in the traffic study, and that's part of the traffic study. I'm not sure about the intersection, I have to look at the details.
Well, we can look further into that. Obviously, if we choose tonight to go through some portions of secret, we'll be the one having to do with traffic.
But it would be good if you're gonna go into it later, if you're gonna go into it later and you think that you'd benefit from having Stephen Maffia, for example, look over the Creighton Manning materials, it would be a good time to think about that now and get that going. So that maybe you could have Stephen's report at the time you take that on.
Can we find out if the letters that went to neighbors about the potential well test were certified?
Well, I believe Sean, he would take a look.
That's correct.
You're gonna
Those
find out.
issues that were
Okay.
raised.
We do have, I believe in here, there's a map of who we did contact, but we don't
Yeah.
obviously have the certification details. This is the map in here. Who they reached out to.
This map might answer one of my questions, I'm not sure. Catherine Clark, 60 London Lane. Were any of the neighbors, are the two green ones, they indicate that those two people participated and had their wells tested? Am I reading that correctly?
I believe so, yes.
And so, I tried to look at this document today, and it did prompt a couple of questions. One of them was this, so I see two people did participate. So I'd like just clarification that there was no degradation of their water quality. Yeah, well, water quality.
Water volume.
So I'd like that confirmed. One of the things that I remember is that was a very wet year. I'm worried about the amount of water that they're going to pump and what it does to the surrounding wells in the area. I also noted on there, on this document, that it said their well was able to pump what they felt they needed, which is, I think, 13,000 gallons plus a day. Their capacity for their sewage and everything was 7,000 gallons a day. So I'm not, are they just anticipating they're not really going to use that much water, or is something happening to 7,000 gallons?
It was 7,400 gallons expected under normal conditions, as I remember, and then 13,000 was under, I guess, extreme circumstances, is that correct?
Yeah, these are all governed by a formula that's promulgated through the Department of Health. And all of our measurements comply with those regulations. So we wouldn't be entitled to get permits that we're applying for if we weren't able to get the draw from the well that was necessary in order for the project to move forward. So these aren't just made up numbers from the project team where they're saying, hey, this is what we need and this is what we can achieve. These are numbers that are actually dictated to the team, and the well has to perform to a certain level in order to get the approval.
I didn't imply at all that your numbers were made up. I'm sure there's.
I'm not saying that you were implying that our numbers were made up. I just want to dispel any type of suggestion or any type of impression that someone might have that these are numbers that we're just manufacturing. The numbers that, and the required gallons that need to be produced from the well are dictated by outside agencies.
So,
Okay, I still would like a little bit of an understanding about, now I think that Edna may have explained it to me, how you can have the capacity for 60 rooms for 7,000 gallons of sewage when you're also looking for the capacity for water to go through the system of 13,000 gallons. So it seems like a kind of gap. I want this much water because I might use it, but I'm only going to look for disposal for half of that. Somehow that seems to be a little off. And I think Edna said that one was based on what average usage or something might be on the sewage disposal, and one was based on extreme usage. I didn't see that in the part of the document I read, so I'd just like confirmation of that.
Yeah, so they have,
Simple thing.
essentially, they have the formulas that I'm referencing. They have average daily demand, and it's on the table behind you. And then the maximum daily demand is going to be a function of the average daily demand, and it appears to be double the amount, right? 6,600 for the average daily, and the maximum is 13,200.
So Kevin, I pulled this table so this is my secret right for the board, that they haven't accepted yet, so it's not official budget, it's the quickest way for me to get to it. This table was pulled from the water, the 72-hour report that they provided us. And I just wanted to know, so the numbers here are the 7,200, so it was very close, the 7,200 average daily demand, 14,400 maximum daily demand based on their numbers. And I did want to note that the county has reviewed this, the Department of Health, and they did provide an approval letter in May of '23 for this. So it has gone through, reviews.
Okay.
As well as the fire.
So maybe my bigger overarching question is, in your review process, they can pump 13,000 gallons a day out of their well because they tested it, it will do that. Where is there any consideration of what happens over the course of 6 months, a year, 18, 3 years, when they're pumping 13,000 gallons a day out of that water source to the rest of the surrounding area? I don't know what kind of studies might protect the people in the rest of the surrounding areas from that water depletion. It doesn't seem like it's anybody's concern except ours. And I just don't know where in your process, nor do I know enough about geoengineering to know, where would you answer that question? It's basically, what's the aquifer underneath like, and am I gonna have to dig a new well in 4 years to go 300 feet instead of 140 or whatever mine is at now?
I raised the question last month, similar, about how much their well was going to generate per hour. You're looking at a daily use. We're talking about a hotel. We've all been to hotels. We get up in the morning and we shower and we brush our teeth. And that's when we're using most of the water. So the fact that they can generate enough water for the full day doesn't mean that their well is sufficient enough to pump what they need in the maximum time period or per hour when people are going to be using it. Because this is a hotel. So everybody's up in the morning within typically a couple of hours, and they're all showering, and that's when the biggest usage of water is gonna be taken. And I believe that their pump wasn't adequate to pump enough water per minute, or gallons per minute, for a 60-room hotel. They may have enough water that they could pump throughout a day, but that's not the concern when building a hotel.
Melody, I would just like to know, like, how are we supposed to ascertain the effect of this well drawdown if the neighbors aren't cooperating and allowing the applicant to test their well under test conditions? And I can't imagine a way of testing a well without putting something down the wellhead. So.
Also, only 2 wells were tested. And, there are other wells that could be affected that are fairly far away, further away than the ones that were tested.
Well, I think some questions have been raised that Sean certainly.
Yeah, we'll get to who the
John,
letters went to.
I finished my sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you indicated that you were gonna follow up on, the circulation of all of the, the notices, and rather than debate it tonight, obviously, we've got a lot of questions around water that we're gonna have to go back to. So let's just take all of these things into consideration right now. We certainly can go back and, John?
Sorry, you can finish, but I just wanted.
Well, I was gonna say, we've obviously had CPL look at this. We can revisit with CPL, what they looked at and what they told us. And there's some things we can do.
Okay, I have a couple of suggestions. Mr. Reader, have you submitted something in writing that sets forth the concerns and the questions that you've been raising at the public hearing?
I haven't, I can.
If you would be willing to do that, Catherine? Yeah, if you both could be willing to do that, that would be quite helpful to us. My suggestion, Melody, is for the board to receive those comments and to pass those along to, is it Christian at CPL that's doing this? Pass those along to Christian at CPL, and then perhaps you may recall that we did this, I think, in the Rockledge review, where for certain areas we had him be here for the public hearing so that he could explain to the board in more detail. By the way, the person I'm referring to, Christian, is an engineer at CPL, which is the planning board's consulting engineer. So they're reviewing the documents that are being submitted by the applicant and then providing comments to the planning board about those documents. Just getting back to what you were saying before about getting an objective view about what's being submitted. So,
I'll put my things in writing.
that would be great, that would be great. And then if we can provide those to Christian, he can come to a meeting like he did at Rockledge and speak to the board members and maybe with those questions in hand, be able to address the questions that have been raised. And again, as with the traffic, it would be very good for the board to have that information and have that dialogue opportunity before you guys start diving into the impact on water supply sections of the EAF Part 2.
Okay. And if you both and anyone else that's interested in submitting letters with those questions, if you can get them to us as soon as possible, it's conceivable we can ask Christian to come to the next meeting and speak to it even before we get into that section of seeker. So we're identifying any other concerns that might rise to the surface.
And do we just send those to Christian?
Yep.
I would also add to make them as complete as possible, as the expense of Christian is on the applicant. I just want to be really fair to both sides, that the applicant is paying for a professional on our side to review those details. And so make those questions as complete as possible.
Yeah, the point that John's making is we don't want to be going back and forth to Christian. Let's get all of your issues out there up front, and then we'll do our best to get them addressed.
Well, we can even coordinate our input so that we have both looked at whatever,
Sure.
So
Sure.
that
And
Well,
that's
certainly on our side, we want to answer them, and we want to but we have to rely on outside resources, because none of us up here are experts on wells, right? And so that's what we have to do, is rely on outside resources.
I do just want to add to one of the comments that were made, which I appreciate because I didn't really think about it like this myself. You know, if it was a wet year, I do want to really consider that because I just explore it a little bit. I mean, I've seen more clients' wells running dry that never had a problem with the level of water or lack of this year. And so I think there's more conversation we can have about that with the professionals just because of And the road thing is a little bit strange, because I understand it's outside of our jurisdiction, but Middle Road is terrifying. It's a terrifying cross. And so I'm not making a suggestion that it's safe or not safe, that's why we have our traffic studies, but it is it's a tough intersection. So those are the questions.
I agree. I don't know if the public knows, the Middle Road exit and entrance is only in the case of emergency.
We're just thinking about the cars.
When you cross over.
And you have more cars
They go
coming
straight.
out of their driveway.
I don't disagree, but.
Just, I think we mentioned this before, but the town had me do a study several years ago when Rudy's was going to stamp, and we knew that Phillips was coming forward, and we looked at the entire 9G corridor from the bridge approach down to Route 9. We met with DOT and talked about it because I thought that we might be looking at some very significant changes to Route 9G because of those two proposals and the distance between them. And, you know, as you've seen, DOT may have put a left turn lane to get into Rugies. I think we're looking at that here as well as a left turn lane in here. So this has been a discussion that's been ongoing between the town and the DOT, obviously in a limited manner, but for several years now. We have been talking about this in the coordination of the traffic that relates to that. So this has been on our radar for a while. But again, we do rely on the DOT because it is their road. But Christian, did take a look at it, and I see you guys responded back to Christian's most recent letter from a little while ago. So he's looked at it. I looked at it as a planner. Again, we rely on him and the DOT to give us those comments.
So are you saying a left turn lane is a possibility for the hotel?
Oh, it's going to happen.
It will be.
Almost certainly. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak for DOT. There is one shown on the plans.
Yeah, and
But
to
that
that
doesn't
point, Jim,
indicate-
it was indicated, I believe, in discussions with DOT that was going to be a required off-site improvement.
It's kind of like there are actually two separate issues. One is what's happening with the driveway entrance for the hotel, and the other is the middle road. You know, they're not necessarily the same, but.
Yes?
Chris Capel, 22 Camden Lane. I appreciate the consideration of the issues that were raised. I think some really good points were raised. Procedural question about SECRA lead agency establishment. Does that lock the scope when the lead agency is declared?
No.
It doesn't?
No.
Why is it usually the agency?
Pardon?
It just locks it usually the agency, which is the
Okay.
planning board.
All right, because my concern is, we've heard some things here tonight, right, including the mystery of where 7,000 gallons of water goes once it's pulled out of the ground. How a 22 gallon per minute well can satisfy a 60-room hotel that has 2 gallon per minute shower heads, right? So we're gonna limit,
We're gonna look at that.
we're gonna limit 11 people to take showers at one time. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of details like that when we get into SACRA, if, for example, the applicant says we may need to drill 2 more wells or have some sort of a water retention, system to store the water for later usage, right? These things I think need to be considered carefully as part of a review like that. So, I want to make sure we're not locked into something that we regret later.
Yes, the lead agency designation is just makes clear which agency is going to take the lead on the environmental review. The other agencies like DEC and the Department of Transportation are involved agencies. The scope of the first step of the environmental review, which is the review of the potential adverse impacts of the project, leading up to a point where the board makes what's called a determination of significance, where they'll decide whether there are any significant adverse environmental impacts that require further study through an environmental impact statement. If they decide that, they'll issue what's called a positive declaration. And then the first step, if that were to take place, the first step after that happens would be for the board to make a determination of what the scope of the environmental impact statement would be. And so there'd be the board would draw up a scope at that time. There may or may not be public participation as part of that, but that's the point in the process where that would come along. But I would also say, and pardon me, I don't know what your level of familiarity is. If I'm telling you things that you already know, I apologize. But in terms of the scope of the board's review leading up to the determination of significance, the scope of that review is dictated by Part 2 of the state prescribed environmental assessment form. And I know Jim can probably give you one if you've never seen it before. It's also available on the DEC website. But you'll see when you look at that form that it's actually quite comprehensive and covers the whole gamut of potential adverse environmental impacts, and the board's required to answer the questions with regard to each impact. So that, just to give you an assurance that there'll be treatment of each one of those as the board goes through the process.
Absolutely, but my understanding is that the entirety of the project needs to be understood at that time, so we avoid segmentation.
Yes, you're correct, and that's I think that's why we're having the dialogue tonight about whether there's additional information that the planning board either needs to get from the applicant or the board needs to get assistance from its own consultants to get themselves there, so they have sufficient knowledge so that they can confidently answer the questions in the EAF.
Okay, good. And on that point of the town's consulting engineer, I'll repeat that you guys do have my letter that I wrote a couple months ago, bringing up the points about the waste treatment facility, which I would request again that gets rolled into that review with engineering, right? For example, well, the picture's not there anymore, but the location of the plant itself and the egress point of the discharge from the plant near Four Brothers Pizza versus at the termination of the property line, which would, if it were moved, it would avoid about 500 feet of traversing wetland area. So things like that, I think would be really, really helpful if we had another read on that from engineering. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I mean, just there's been a lot of discussion about where things stand with traffic, and certainly we can discuss it more, but I did want to note, I went back through some of the letters that have been gone back and forth, because our planning board engineer did take a look at this and had some questions about it, and the response from Creighton Manning, which is the applicant's engineer, stated that on June 4th, 2025, by email, NISDOT approved the stage 1 Perm 33 COM, which is a permit. A conceptual left turn lane layout has been added to sheet C4 for reference. A crash analysis was completed and did not warrant a left turn lane. However, NISDOT has suggested it as part of the permit. The full stage 2 permit will be advanced directly with NISDOT following seeker and site plan approvals. The left turn lane remains an off-site improvement under New York State DOT's jurisdiction and is not a condition precedent to the town's approval, which is, I've gone back and forth on this. I think it's true, but the planning board still has to be comfortable the left turn lane seems to be what you want. Again, if you have issues with anything proposed, we can raise those questions. But in the final outcome, the DOT will dictate what needs to happen here. So they have advanced their reviews. DOT has advanced their reviews and provided the initial permit, I guess is where it is for now. And they are proposing a left turn lane, even though the crash analysis apparently does not warrant such.
I just say one other thing, I think Edna is the one who brought it up, that I just want to be clear that it's two separate things, the left turn lane, or maybe it was the lease, and the intersection are completely different. It's the intersection that's really terrifying. Thank you.
Intersection is emergency. But it's emergency.
I think it's that if there's people leaving and adding more people traffic, someone's trying to cross, as someone just pulled out, when it's already very hard to cross over, and I think that's what they're referencing. But yeah, not the exit, but I think it's more the people
Is that
driving on the road.
town board? The middle road intersection is.
If we're looking at changes to the.
Well, no, like middle road, like.
I get you.
No,
So-
we understand, we're asking
we
ourselves.
know,
what
but,
might-
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just saying, like, it's not a planning board, unfortunately, it's not a planning board. The planning board doesn't have control of the middle road, is what I'm communicating.
Right, or lights on it.
Right, or lights on, like, we unfortunately are not the
Right.
people to be in front of. And my question was, is if you want changes there, who could be directed to? I guess is where I'm at.
Well,
Is it the town board?
Town board, right?
So,
I
the-
I think it's also an issue of scale, because as it is, there's a ton of traffic on 9G. It's a very busy road as it stands.
Right.
And you're gonna add the traffic that's associated with a 16-minute
So,
hotel. You know, it's already a pretty deep, traffic lagoon that's.
John, who do we direct?
Oh, well, let me just say one thing, there is that, but John brought up earlier, and I hate to keep doing this, but John brought up earlier the opportunity, if approved by the applicant, to have Stephen Mafia, who advised us before, to review the Creighton Manning report and either agree that it's complete and answers all the questions or offers alternative suggestions. I don't like to keep adding on consultants, but I think in this case, this is such a complicated question that an outside opinion might warrant that if that's something, Sean, your client would agree to.
I'll discuss that with the client.
And I don't know that we're asking him, correct me if I'm wrong, what I think we're asking him to do is review the Creighton Manning report and comment on that. We're not asking him to do, at this point, an independent traffic study or anything beyond.
That's correct. He would be reviewing the opinions that, he'd be reviewing the Creighton Manning materials. Is there a conceptual approval from DOT?
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we would probably provide that to Stephen as well.
So what we can do is, we can ask John to reach out to Stephen and provide him with materials and get a cost estimate for you. So
Okay.
that you can.
The cost estimate would be appreciated.
Yeah. I don't anticipate it is weeks and weeks of work.
No,
It's-
he's pretty responsive,
Yeah,
and
so
we
why don't we
found
do
him
that?
to be, his pricing to be very reasonable.
So I'll let you two coordinate between you about that. You can.
I may need to find out from Jim, I just want to make sure I have the whole, I mean, I'll certainly let Sean know about the time frame and the price, but I'll need to find out from you, Jim, that I have the whole universe of documents that we want to give to Stephen to look at.
All right, so we'll coordinate all that between the three of you.
Yes.
Does that work for everybody?
It does, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
He was really good at providing context with the Rockledge
Yeah.
application.
Yeah, and I think it will, for those of you who are wondering about this, we hired this consultant before on another project where there were a lot of traffic questions. He came in and reviewed all the information that was brought in and offered us his response to everything and offered some suggestions that we could take to the town. And he may very well do that again as well, so.
He's a licensed traffic engineer, so that's what
Can I
his
just ask
expertise
one
is.
quick question regarding this picture? When you're talking left turning lane, you're talking about going into the complex, right? So how is anyone able to make a left coming out of the complex if that's a double yellow line? 9G
We'll ask
is a
Mr.
double yellow
Mafia to
line,
explain that.
right?
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone, all right, so if there's no other public comment, no other public questions, we can now take up how we would like to begin going through the seeking process. Jim, I know that you have prepared a monumental document here, and I think you have some suggestions as to how we could approach it. So maybe you want to share your ideas about the approach, and then we'll decide if we're up for a little bit more tonight, or if we have a plan for next month.
Right, so again, while it is an unlisted action, it's a long form action, so we do need to go through long form. And in the past, we've done this, thoroughly going through question by question. sub-item by sub-item. It's entirely the board's prerogative as to how you want to do that. I pulled together, like I did last time, all the details that I think support, where things stand right now. I did have a couple questions that I did provide to Sean. But it's really up to you how you want to do it. If you want to go through some of them, I do have some that I think are easier than others, like the critical environmental area. You can check that one out in about 5 seconds. That's a great one. But there are some I think you can do if you wanted to, whether it's tonight or another time, that we would go through first. That would be the lower hanging fruit, I guess, for lack of a better term, over the others. That would be the critical environmental area, impact on open space and recreation. It would be impact on flooding, plants and animals potentially, and then aggregate resources, aesthetic resources potentially, and historic and archaeological resources. This is a little trickier, but the first couple I think are pretty straightforward. It's really up to you how you want to do the process and what you want to do.
I'd be open to getting through a couple of them tonight that are, we don't have outstanding information for.
So shall we look at the clock? It's 8 o'clock. Give ourselves 20 to 30 minutes to see where we get.
Sure.
And then
We'll
wrap
save
up.
it 15, but.
Well, you're overruled.
Yeah, let's do
Is
that.
that a game plan?
Yes.
Everybody can go ahead. Jen, it's up to you.
All right. So don't get to hear me talk a lot. Let me pull up the part 2.
Give us page numbers, okay?
Oh, yeah. All right, so we'll be going through, and again, this is just a draft, so providing it to the board for your review. This is my kind of technical analysis review. It's obviously open to discussion by the board, but I've tried to pull together all the information that I could find based on what was submitted for this application. So I think the first one we would start with would be item number 12, which is critical environmental area, and as for page numbers, I will have to find it as you go. It is on page 29, the packet that I put together. So, question number 12 asks if the proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area, otherwise known as a CEA. As you know, based on lots of discussions we've had before, there are no CEAs in the town of Rhinebeck, so I do not believe there would be an impact. I have provided you with information on where the CEAs are, and the closest one to here is Vandenberg Cove, which is in the town of Hyde Park. It's about 6 miles straight line distance from the project site, so it's not located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area based on my review. So I would ask for your thoughts on that.
Well, yes, let's just go ahead and say that there is no, or some fact.
Second.
I agree.
Right. First one done. Fantastic. Moving on, we'll go to number 11, which will be on page 28. The question asks, will the proposed action result in a loss of recreational opportunities or reduction of open space resources as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan? So I noted that the property currently is and always has been privately owned. The applicant's proposal does not create a loss of a recreational resource or an impact to an informal community open space resource because no such resource exists on the site. The town does not have an adopted open space plan, so there's no impact with that element of the question. When we look at the town's comprehensive plan, which does discuss open space, there is no recommendation that I could find talking about using this property as an open space resource. If we look at the natural resource inventory, landscape context map, and the NRI was just updated about 2 years ago, it does not indicate this parcel or the northwest corner of the town as being a forest linkage zone or significant biodiversity area. And the large forest map shows this parcel in the 0 to 20 forest condition index, which is actually the lowest rating. And this natural resource inventory really, I think, is going beyond the question being asked in item 11, but just took it a little further. Regarding impact. Yeah, so, regarding impact or impairment of ecosystem services, the site is being partially developed with no natural features being completely removed or completely cut off from the rest of the site, and the NRI didn't identify anything of significance other than it is forest.
So I say no impact, you all agree?
Yes.
All right.
No impact to All right, next one, we'll move back to number 5. Again, just kind of jumping around through these based on what I think is the easiest to answer. Back.
Page 16.
16.
Thank you. Okay, number 16, I'm sorry, number 5, impact on flooding, which is page 16.
Page 16.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sounds about it.
Okay.
The question in the form asks if the proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. We took a look at this, looked at Dutchess County parcel access and the FEMA Flood Map Center Service Center resources. Based on those assessments, there are no floodplains located on this parcel. That's all.
Impact.
Zero swell.
Right. Next, we would go to item number 7, which would be on page 18. So it might get a little trickier. The proposed action may result in loss of flora or fauna. Looking at this, I note that Part 2 form refers to the threatened and endangered species habitat suitability assessment report that was done March 1st, 2018 by Michael Nowicki. The report notes that the DEC Environmental Resource Mapper indicated the northern long-eared bat, Indiana bat, and dwarf wedge mussel are potentially on or in the vicinity of the property. As such, an assessment was undertaken of the existing habitat on the property, potential impacts, and proposed mitigation measures for impacts on conservation of the above referenced species. For the wedge mussel, the report concluded there is no potential habitat for the species on the property since the tributary flows from a culvert and the water quality is most likely poor due to road drainage. The tributary is noted as being only approximately 200 feet in length and enters a wetland. It is not mapped by the DEC. Regarding Indiana bats and the other bats, which is something we run into regularly with development in the town, the findings note that the property is within the range of the known hypernicula of the Indiana bat, which is both a state and federally protected species. Data from the DEC suggests that the bats have been observed roosting in trees within the town. Forested and wetland habitat on the property contains suitable trees for use of the species, by the species for roosting and foraging. The report also notes that to avoid impacts on the species, all tree clearing must be done between November 1st and March 31st, and that's a state requirement. Additional conservation measures that were recommended in the report included installing dark sky compliant down lighting to minimize light pollution and not interfere with potential bat foraging activities. Dark sky compliant lights are required in the town, and that's why we're asking just to get a confirmation on the finalization of the lighting. Implementing soil conservation dust control best management practices such as watering dry disturbed soil areas to keep dust down and using other construction best practices essentially. Prior to clearing, the limits of the proposed clearing to be clearly demarcated on the site with orange construction fencing or similar to prevent inadvertent overclearing of the property. And the stormwater ponds will not be maintained with any chemicals that might adversely affect the bats or insect populations on which they feed. The report notes that these measures, in addition to developing a landscaping plan that utilizes species that are associated with the Indian bat, including shagbark hickory, will result in minimizing potential adverse impacts. So based on my review of the plans, the elements have been adequately addressed. However, there are no shagbark hickory proposed. There are 8 oak trees that have been proposed as part of this, but they are also bat-friendly species, so I think they're okay in terms of the tree plantings and recommendations from that plan. Regarding the northern long-eared bats, the bats spend the winter hibernating in caves and mines, typically with large passages or entrances, constant temperatures, and high humidity with no air currents. In the summer, they roost underneath bark in the cavities or crevices of both live and dead trees. The property is within the area known for the northern long-eared bat, which is the state of federal threatened species. Conservation measures have been proposed for the Indian bat that are also sufficient for the northern long-eared bat. I noted in here a paragraph about the tree removal in northern Dutchess County. I'm not going to go through reading that. We know that the state requires it, and they've noted that they will follow the DEC requirements for tree removal. No plants were identified as threatened or endangered on the parcel. The DEC Environmental Resource Mapper showed the nearest location of plants listed as endangered, threatened, or rare as being generally around the Snyder Swamp along Mount Rutson Road and not extending to the subject parcel. So for this sub-item, I ask for your thoughts on no or small impact or large impact.
I think no or small impact.
I agree.
I would agree.
I agree.
Middle one. Wish there was something a little more middle ground, but of the two, I would say.
No, thing to remember.
I think that part of the observations that we made when we were in the field were a lot of the trees that are being cut are quite small in diameter, and they were being very selective and keeping large stands of trees within the area of potential effect.
John?
I just wanted to remind you that, so the middle ground is moderate to large impact. And if you find, and first of all, I also want to remind you that this is your first cut through the form at this process. You're not locked into anything at this moment. That there'll be a later time when you guys will formally adopt the completion of the form. But just because you identify a potential impact as moderate to large doesn't mean it's necessarily going to result in a positive declaration, because when you get to part 3, you'll take a look at if there are impacts that you've identified as moderate to large. When the time comes to do part 3, you'll, with some guidance from the DEC materials, you'll look at those moderate to large impacts and then make a determination about whether they are significant such that an environmental impact statement is required. Just because they're moderate to large doesn't mean they're necessarily significant. And there's guidance from DEC to take you through that. So, and it looks at, I don't know, Jim, maybe you can remember, but it's going to look at magnitude and scale and the importance of the impacts with regard to the project. So just letting you know that that sort of middle ground
Yeah,
is there.
that's helpful.
If you remember from last time, we went through this stuff on the screen, you know, it gives us the guidance on how to answer the question and some of the thoughts that go behind it. So if when we get to that point, we can go through that. All the questions have guidance elements from you.
So we can make a note with this one, that this may be one that we want to come back to and look
Well, and
further.
really what my thought process was, if we're taking the whole general area of that area, right? There's so many woodlands all around. I don't think it's making a major, my guess is major impact on the bat population in that area. With that said, if there are bats homes specifically on that property, they might go to another tree after some of this disturbance. So to the property, I think there's not no disturbance. But do I think it's going to create an overall environmental impact for the bats? The answer is no. So that, just to clarify my thought.
Well, I think Jim's done a decent job in here of obviously noting the things that are being proposed that will mitigate any impact. So we can think about that some more, but thanks for those thoughts.
Yeah, and so to what you said, that's why the DC has the tree clearing regulations, so that if the trees are taken down, that's where the bats were, they will go somewhere else on the site or somewhere nearby, so that they don't lose that habitat. So if we're looking no small for that one for now, we can come back and re-review that. The remaining sub-items really are essentially related. We'll just go through them one by one really quickly, just because. Sub-item B asks if the action will result in the reduction or degradation of habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species is listed by the state or federal government. Again, this is the same information I presented above. The presence of potential wildlife is being assumed and mitigation measures have been proposed.
I'm okay with no or small impact. I just appreciate everyone's conversation about it because that helped create some clarification. So just.
Next one, C asks if the proposed action may cause reduction in population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation need as listed by the state or federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near it. Again, the details on this are listed up above, and the presence of potential wildlife is being assumed. Mitigation measures have been proposed. So if you're looking no small at that one as well. Sub-item D asks if the action will result in a reduction or degradation of habitat used by any species of special concern and conservation need, as listed by the state or federal government. Again, the presence is being assumed, and mitigation measures have been proposed as it relates to habitat. Or small. The action asks if the proposed action would diminish the capacity of a registered natural landmark to support the biological community it was established to protect, and after review of the online list of landmark locations, we have determined there are no such designations in the town of Rhinebeck.
No impact.
Sub-item F asks if the proposed action will result in the removal of or ground disturbance of any portion of the designated significant natural community, again, based on our review of other Part 1 questions and our review of other materials, including the DEC environmental mapper, which shows the nearest significant natural communities being approximately 1.8 miles straight line distance west of the site. We don't believe there are any impacts to this one as well.
No impact.
G asks if the proposed action may substantially interfere with nesting, breeding, foraging, or overwintering habitat for the predominant species that occupy or use the site. Again, I think this relates predominantly to the bat. We'll discuss that one. H asks if the proposed action requires the conversion of more than 10 acres of forest, grassland, or other regionally or locally important habitat. This information was included in the Part 1 and SWIP. Both listed the total acreage to be disturbed at approximately 4.9 acres, so it's not over 10, therefore no or small. And the last one for this question is, ask if the proposed action, commercial, industrial, or recreational projects only, and will involve the use of herbicides or pesticides. Part 1, item D2Q was answered as no. So the answer from the applicant is they will not use those. Okay. So based on all of the sub-items, I believe that we've answered that item number 7 would be no or small impact.
Correct.
Great. That's item 7. Next one I would go to would be number 8, impact on agricultural resources. For this one, the site is not currently and has not recently been used for farming activities, and an ag data statement has been completed by the applicant. An adjacent property on the opposite side of Route 9G is in Ag District 21. The EAF Part 2 notes that the site does not include agricultural lands consisting of highly productive soils and lists the 3 predominant soil types, as that's the only detail we provide on the Part 2. However, this will provide more detail. It lists 6 soil types, which are summarized below. It noted those types, which you can see in the second paragraph there. The Graham Silt Loam RA is listed as potentially being a prime ag soil, as it is only classified as such where drained. Soil makes up 6.2 acres or 17% of the site, is indicated in the image to the left by the brown shading in the middle of the far right parcel. So you can see the brown shading in the middle. These areas are generally the wetlands on the parcel, and as such would not likely be considered well drained, because the wetland areas would not drain water at a moderate rate, or generally would remain dry. Additionally, the other soil type, which makes up 0.8 acres or 2.1% of the site, is listed as adequate for cultivated crops or pasture, with other areas used for woodland or residential development. The CA soil unit is adequate for woodlands or other water-tolerant bushes and grasses, but is unsuited for cultivated crops. Just kind of continuing through it. Even if the RA soil was considered prime farmland, it's not being disturbed except for the driveway crossing to access the wastewater and utility locations. Other units are listed as adequate for woodlands or pasture land, with areas used for residential development, typically in the state. There are 3 soil units listed as unsuited for cultivated crops. Pasture being a better use, but the suitability is poor. Looking at the 2022 Rhinebeck NRI Ag Resources map, and confirm the information found in the Dutchess County NRI Soils chapter, and has identified the presence of some prime farmland soils in the RI soil unit if drained, but again, there's no active farming on the property. It has not been undertaken for a while, and the site is heavily wooded. The proposal does not appear to be taking any active farmland out of use or impeding any active farming activities. So we reviewed all those and confirmed that it didn't appear any of the thresholds were met by this project based on all the information available for review regarding the farming off-site on adjacent nearby parcels, which has been discussed in the past. Seeker guidance focuses on the loss of farmland and any loss of access to farmland, such as may be done through an easement across the property to another. This project does not remove any farmland from use nor impact existing ag operations or prohibit such farming actions in the future.
So no impact.
A lot of my talking just to get to that point. Appreciate it. That's what we have to do. All right, there were 2 more I thought we'd try and get through. Let's see. Next one will be 9. We'll just go there. We're there anyway. 9 is the impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action is obviously different from and in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. And that's the important distinction here on number 9. So we're looking at aesthetic resources as it relates to current land use patterns. So when you look at the FEAF workbook, it states that, let's see if I can summarize this for us. I don't have to read it all. The question, well, I'm just going to read it. The question asks for information on those scenic and aesthetic resources that are officially designated and publicly accessible. Officially designated scenic areas include scenic byways, scenic roads, scenic areas of statewide significance, scenic trails and scenic rivers. Other areas may also be designated at the state level for scenic or aesthetic reasons. Some local municipalities have conducted their own scenic inventory and have designated those areas in their plans. Others have designated critical environmental areas for aesthetic reasons. Publicly accessible aesthetic or scenic resources are those that can be viewed from public lands or on public roads. So, sub-item A asks if the proposed action will be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. Based on our review of the materials, the property is located along an officially designated scenic or aesthetic resource, that's 9G, and is within 5 miles of other publicly accessible federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resources, those being the Hudson River, several National Register properties, other elements, related elements. Though the project site itself is not a scenic based on any official designation or the definition of the term noted above, the property is and has been private and is not publicly accessible. The subject property, including all lands between 9G and Hoop Road, between Old Post Road and Lemon Lane, are not identified as a conservation or scenic resource in the NRI. So we need to determine, mainly with this one, I think, if you feel that there's any issue related to visibility from 9G as it relates to impacting land use patterns.
Well, here, my concern is the wastewater facility and what it's going to.
Is the what?
The wastewater facility, the wastewater structure.
I see. And its visibility.
And what it looks like, and from 9G, but also from neighbors. In terms of consistency with the neighborhood.
I would add to that, that the entry drive with the circular pull around will be visible from 9G, which is a scenic road, and we'll also be able to see the roof lines of the buildings that are adjacent. We talked before about the screening issue, but I think just...
And I think we've asked for additional trees in certain locations that the applicant has agreed to do, and we can keep looking at that as well. I would say that we're not starting from a position of a purely scenic and aesthetically pleasing stretch of road there. There are other buildings that have been intruded into that aesthetic years ago. I'm not saying we shouldn't pay attention to them, but it's already been altered to some extent.
Well, I would argue that this is one of the few stretches of that road that actually is scenic.
Okay.
And it will be less so because of this development. Now, whether that's, you know, a major impact or something I think we have to discuss, but I don't think we can just ignore that it is a factor.
So you're leaning toward moderate to?
I would suggest we look at the guidelines, because I think if we're looking at the guidelines, it's going to be nowhere small. They've also picked earthy tones to blend in with the landscape. And I think if we look at the guidelines, based upon previously doing this, it's not a large impact. I would also agree with what Edna had said, that we don't have the details on the impact of that structure for the wastewater treatment, and I think maybe at this point it's until we know it's not the right time to go on this part of.
Well, I think, can I, Sean, we've been, and the neighbors have been asking, what is this gonna look like? And they keep saying, well, we don't know. We don't know. Okay, they know the amount of wastewater going through there. So they know how big a plant they need. We need to know what it's gonna look like.
So, we actually don't know exactly what size the plant is gonna be, because it's my understanding that that's gonna be a function of the permit that's ultimately granted, which we can't get until there's a determination of significance made by the planning board. So there's a little bit of a chicken or egg there. That said, we have supplied a picture of what a typical treatment plant would look like. We don't know if that's going to be the exact one, and that's what has kind of given some cause for concern from the team, saying we don't want to say this is the exact one that's going in there, and then we get the speedies permit or the permit that they're waiting for. I think it's a speedies permit. I don't want to speak, but they get that permit and they say, oh no, it's going to have a slightly different footprint, right? Generally speaking, we can show you what the unit is going to look like.
You have, and I have said that it's very unattractive.
But the thing
and we've also said that we were going to do screening around it, and that we can partially put it into the ground as well.
Well, putting it in the ground, the screening, that can all be put in front of us now. If you have this is the unit sitting here where you're gonna lower it this much, what screening are you gonna use around it?
So you want a rendering with the
Yes.
screen?
I think you
Yes.
ought to even be thinking about the worst-case scenario.
Yeah.
You know, present to us the worst-case scenario and let us see what the impact will be. But I think at this point, we're going to be stymied with this question
Okay.
until we have a clear idea of what it's going to look like. John?
Well, I'm just saying that part of what the board needs to determine as part of this project is whether the design of the project has mitigated the impacts that are identified. And if, I mean, that from the applicant's standpoint, what you have a choice of is either giving them more information right now to try to show that those impacts are mitigated, or letting the board just decide whether that needs to be studied and mitigation measures determined, at a later time.
Sure, no, let me talk to the team about getting a rendering out. Just to be clear, Jim, are you pretty certain that there is no rendering with the wastewater treatment plant?
No, I believe the only information we saw was the cut sheet.
The cut
and
sheet,
the
okay.
picture.
Yeah.
Let me talk to the team about getting a rendering with the screening that would be around it, and to the extent that there might be ability to partially put it underground, we'll get those details.
I even suggested a surround of some kind. In other words, something that looks like a structure, rather than landscaping screening as an alternative.
And Sean, I would add just, it might be helpful to have some kind of rendering from the 9G point of view, because I believe that, it's north of the entrance, there'd be a viewpoint, is my understanding. But also, if we could further potentially get a viewpoint from the surrounding neighbors, if there's a way of doing that, just so I think that would answer a lot of questions.
When you say viewpoint from the surrounding neighbors.
Well, maybe there is no view, and that's the point that he's
Right,
getting at.
I'm just like, I'm like, if this is the structure, right?
Yeah.
And here's 9G, what does that look like if I'm driving down 9G? And also if I'm at this gentleman's house over here, what could that potentially look like?
So 360.
Some kind of within reason. I'm not.
Some of, I mean.
I think that's
the
some of the
property
biggest
is kind
sticking
of.
points I think we've seen to date. And I think the further we can clarify that, I think it would be helpful for everyone.
John?
Sean, to help Sean, it might be, even if you could just take a screen grab of the map up there, and if you can identify the receptor points that you want to see the view from, then Sean's not guessing when they put those together.
Do like balloon tests, do we do it for things in the sky, we could like put something there so the neighbors can see it? I don't see it at all, in which case it's a non-issue, or I'm definitely seeing that red, in which case that is the viewpoint that we're curious about, of what that structure then looks like from that view.
Right now, actually, would be a good time if someone could go out and just put, say, from the 9G view, put sticks in the ground and maybe even just wrap, yellow tape around the top of it so you get an idea of where that is, because it's leaf off right now. And take a picture shot in from 9G, somewhere along 9G. So you might be able to see that in the background, whatever it is, and then, maybe go with renderings from there, but you get that. We've done that before with a physical, element in the landscape.
Yeah, leave them there for a
Leave
little
it there,
while,
because the
yeah.
neighbors might not see anything, and then it's not visible from the location.
I think we would have to get permission to put any type of structure up on that property, I believe, right? While this application is pending.
We're just talking about stakes and tape.
I understand, but I just want to be clear that if there are any other permissions that we need to get in order to do that, would that be from this board, or, because I know like with cutting the path and stuff like that, we wanted to make sure that we didn't do anything that disturbed,
But we can.
the lay of the land.
Well, I guess we're operating on the assumption that putting the stakes up isn't going to require clearing significant amounts of vegetation.
Or its own secret.
Well, there's no path out to that area.
Right.
So I'm not entirely familiar with what that land looks like out there.
Why
I don't
don't you
think.
have a discussion with the applicant and see what's feasible?
Sure, and then communicate that to Jim?
Yep.
Okay, that sounds good.
And the underbrush at least is thinnest now, so we go to Zoom, it's easier.
No, I agree with the,
We still gotta check.
yeah, I don't want to commit to something and then the features of the property make it very difficult or
Well,
somehow.
do some checking, talk to Jim. We can certainly let Brian know if we've asked for something to be done that he might get a call on or something like
Sure,
that.
and I'll coordinate with Jim.
Yeah, we're just talking about a stakeout where it would be, you know, so two by fours pounded in the ground with some tape over the top and take a couple pictures and leave it up is really, I think, what we're asking for. So
Yeah.
no real disturbance there.
And also, it's, you know, there are a couple of extant structures there that are likely to remain, so we might find that there are only a few key vantage points where you'll actually have the opportunity to see this. One of the things that I'd be concerned about, though, is does this structure have a railing around the top that's going to make it additionally visible? So we're going to be presented with a, you know, like a block on a PDF or something like that. It's like, oh, it's going to be right here. It's going to be about this big. Yeah, but it's going to have a railing. Does that railing need to be painted a safety color? Does it require some sort of permanent signage because of confined space, or does it need lighting?
Some
You
other
know,
type of visual
all those
impact.
kinds of details, I think, would have an impact on that assessment. So anything like that that's going to be relevant, that's important.
Sean, is the plan an open air plan or is it gonna be enclosed in a building?
I believe it's enclosed. Totally enclosed in the container.
Okay,
Well, even without knowing the size, if you can give us information about what the container will look like, what the colors will be, all of those.
yeah, because that's gonna be an issue when you guys get to noise, odor, and light. Because the odor from the plant is gonna be something you're gonna wanna look at. We went through that with Rockledge.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're
Thank
gonna
you.
end on this note
Okay.
tonight.
Oh, really?
Yes?
Let's just get warmed up.
So we can get a couple more questions in maybe, Sean.
Yeah.
How about we go to the hard one, Sean?
Yeah.
You gave me an extra 10 minutes and now, you know, I'm trying to be nice. Whatever. Okay. Is everybody pleased with this? So we'll have a motion to continue the public hearing
So moved.
to January 6th. Is that good timing for you, Sean?
Yes.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. And then we just have one ZBA referral. Thank you, everybody. That was good.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm really sorry, but before, I don't want Sean and his team to waste time pounding stakes into the ground where the footprint of that plan is going to be. Without elevation, it's not going to tell you anything.
Well, we're going to cover every
Okay.
step
Right,
here.
I mean, you've done balloons before for solar systems and things, but you need to,
We understand.
you need to see.
But
okay.
the more things we can do,
Yeah.
the
I
better.
just didn't want them to waste their time.
They're not wasting their time. This is an investment.
All right.
Thank you.
Melody, did you say that was the 6th?
I think January 6th.
January 6th?
Tuesday, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. ZBA referral, case number 1092.
Okay, so, this property currently has a barn on it, which is considered to be an accessory structure, not a principal structure. Legally, I guess shouldn't be there, but it is, so it is what it is. So they've applied to the ZBA for construction of a residential addition to the existing pole barn. It's located between Route 9G and Old Workenburg Road, the southern end of Workenburg Road. This is not a historic site, not a historic structure on the property. It is a new pole barn. The proposed residential addition will meet the required setbacks, but the total accessory square footage after construction will not meet the permitted maximum square footage for accessory structures. The site currently has the accessory structure, as I noted, with a total roofed area of 3,500 square feet. The proposed addition is 1,150 square feet, so the applicant is seeking a total variance of 2,975 square feet, which will cover the existing structure overage and the new 1,150 square foot proposed residential addition. The addition includes 2 bedrooms and one bathroom, and again, 2 bedrooms, bathroom, and will require Dutchess County Health Department approval. So I leave it up to you whether you wanted to just refer back to the ZBA with no significant planning or environmental concerns, or if you have concerns that you would like to know. This is 9G, this is Wartenberg, and the addition is going on the 9G side of the building, not the Wartenberg side. So this is what exists right now, bigger square.
Could you state it's a reapproval too?
What's that?
This was already approved. He ran out of the year and didn't get the building permit.
I thought, I knew we talked about, okay.
So this was already approved one time, so he's basically coming back just to have the exact same thing reapproved,
Thank you.
so he doesn't run out of time.
And where is this in relation to what we just looked at?
It's the southern end of Wartenberg, the other one is the middle. This is down the road from where we were, yes.
Oh, Clyde is at the very end of Wittenberg,
Yeah,
the very southern.
that's where the road is very close. It's not the same owner.
Oh, no, this is,
Brother.
No,
this
he's
is
on.
McLeod right here,
Yeah.
and this project is.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know exactly where it is.
It's almost in Hyde Park.
I have to look up parcel access to find it for sure.
It's all my fault.
I'm gonna have to look it up again, but I don't know where it's exactly.
Is it visible right from 9G?
Yes. I believe so. I'm gonna look up on parcel access.
So it went before the ZBA before as well?
Time, no, it's fine, it was just 18 months, like, they lost their year, and then it was another 8 months after, so they couldn't, well, there wasn't a real reason.
I don't know what this is.
Huh?
This is over near Frost Road.
That's what it exists.
Where's the addition?
This.
That is the addition.
This is what exists, this would be the proposed, or this is the addition here. Yes.
And the variance was for?
Just for overage.
Square footage?
Yeah.
But, and it's visible from 9G?
I believe so, it's been a little while since I've
What
done
do they use the barn for?
I guess the only thing I would suggest that maybe the ZBA take a look at is the visibility from 9G and whether, you know, I mean, I'm not projecting necessarily to it, but it isn't the most attractive.
Wish they could paint it or color.
Do they have a front yard variance that they need? What's the
This is the overage.
variance that they're asking for?
It's the overage on the square footage. Because
But not on the,
for accessory structures.
okay, not on the elevation of the house, just put a,
The elevation is lower than the building, I'm not right, it's right about that.
605,
I doubt it's actually visible from 9G.
Okay.
If you look at, I mean, that's not great. It would be hard to see from 9G.
Yeah. I
I'm
don't
not sure,
have
I
anything.
found it before, I can't find it at the moment.
I don't know that I have anything to add to the ZBA looking at their.
Their own-
study of the facts.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Right. Okay, just one other thing I would bring up and ask for your input on. You will note that we received a revised application today for the Swiss and Brands. It's my opinion, and I believe Jim's, that we should immediately forward that to our consulting engineer, CPL, so that they can begin their review process, so that we can maybe get a little bit ahead. And we'll see, we'll speak to Christian, and depending on how long it takes him to get a review letter back to us, I think it would be important to have Christian at the meeting when we begin that discussion, specifically about the engineering and the technical aspects of it that I don't think are included in this application at this time. So it may be that we'll get a review back from him that will engender a number of questions, and don't get into it just yet, But if you're okay with that, I'd like to jumpstart that process and
Good idea.
get that going. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. And I would entertain
Motion for the referral comments.
a motion.
For the referral comments.
So may I, for the ZBA?
Yeah.
Somebody make a motion to.
So moved. That's,
Second.
that's the view from 9J.
Okay, great.
There's a lot of trees.
Okay, I have a motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think I need a motion to send it to CPL.
No.
Okay, good. Then I will take a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
Today's guy.
Opposed?